We were talking to Tanya Plibersek about that earlier. So what sort of information are you getting? Are you making the case that the negativity is starting to get Chris Bowen over the line?
Well, no, I'm just saying that certainly when I was on pre-poll the other day, there were quite a number of people who were quite put off by the campaign that had been run against Ray King. He was seen as very much a police officer of good standing. He's been there, I think, about 40 years as a policeman. I think some of the campaign that was run against him has worked in the opposite direction, because there was certainly a lot of people on that pre-poll when I was there saying to me that it had had the opposite effect. In other words, they were voting for Ray King because of the campaign and the sort of negativity that had been run by Mr Bowen in that seat.
Tanya Plibersek, well, I mean, we just heard Heather Hewitt say that Chris Bowen may well be in more trouble than you imagine. I mean, that would be a disaster for Labor to lose someone of his stature, wouldn't it?
It would be a terrible loss indeed, because he's made a great contribution to the Parliament. But in my most recent communications, I think we'd say we're quietly confident of keeping Chris. There's probably 6 seats, I'd say, that we're more nervous about in Western Sydney, and 3 outside Sydney in other parts of New South Wales. But
the 2 Central Coast seats absolutely critical.
Yeah.
You expect to lose those?
I'd say I'm very nervous about 9 seats in New South Wales, yeah.
And, well, the exit poll's saying 14 in New South Wales will go to the coalition, so maybe we'll see further developments during the course of the
exit polls.
I've got to ask you this, because the first serious leak from the campaign appeared in The Australian today, with reports that the old Kevin Rudd had resurfaced during the campaign, refused to actually take direction from the campaign headquarters, started running the show from his own aeroplane, that he was, the thought bubbles on policy were coming from Kevin Rudd directly, and then without any reference to the Melbourne campaign headquarters, things like the big tax cut in the Northern Territory to companies, for example, shocked those in the campaign headquarters, according to a Labor insider. It's quite a worry, isn't it, that the campaign headquarters have started leaking on the actual day of the vote?
Well, I'm certainly not going to get involved in any of that sort of talk. I think that any recriminations in public or in private will only make things worse, and it's up to all of us, particularly elected members of Parliament, to take responsibility collectively for the good times and the bad.
OK, well, more on this later. We'll cross back to Kerry in the main studio now.
And we're going to continue going through some early figures as they come to hand. There'll be no particular pattern to it. We're just going to go for seats that are going to help us put the early story together. Anthony, we're going to start with the seat of Capricornia. This is central Queensland, centred around the city of Rockhampton. Kirsten Livermore is the retiring Labor member. She's been there since 1998. ALP went into this election with a 3.7% margin. I know they're early figures, but what are they saying?
Well, let's have a look at those first figures that are coming up here, and they're the numbers there, 52. I've just a slight update, and the LNP is not quite as high, and the figures are a little bit sort of short of that. But let's just run through these figures.
Yep.
There are a lot of small rural areas and big mining towns in this electorate, so it's quite diverse. When we factor in the preferences that are coming, I think I've got a preference count on 1 booth in these numbers. And the swing is only 0.4% at this stage. So the Labor Party's ahead in that seat. Was certainly not giving that seat away. That's a seat that we'll be watching a lot tonight, but it's an extremely diverse electorate, Capricornia.
Now, the seat of Kingsford Smith in Sydney's eastern suburbs has been, traditionally, one of the very safest of Labor seats, and it's just been whittling and whittling in the last couple of elections. Peter Garrett is retiring. He held the seat in 2004. Going into this election, Kingsford Smith was 5.2% margin for Labor.
And Matt Thistlethwaite's the new, always a great tongue twister, that one. Matt Thistlethwaite's the new Labor candidate transferring from the Senate. Michael Fennelly's the Liberal candidate, a cardiologist from St Vincent's Hospital. He's behind on first preferences. We've got 2 airport booths and 1 from Daceyville South, which is showing an overall swing towards the Labor Party. That's very early figures at this stage, but and given that the airport booths is not always the same person's voting at them from one election to another, at this stage you wouldn't call Kingsford Smith, but we're just running through the early figures to keep everybody an eye across them.
OK, now the seat of Hunter, this is in the Hunter region, with, I suppose, a little northwest of Newcastle itself. Joel Fitzgibbon has held this seat since 1996. With a 12.5% margin going into this campaign. We've got 1.3% of the vote counted.
And his father held it for 13 years before that, so it's quite a long time in the Fitzgibbon family. Michael Johnston, the Nationals are running in this seat. Now, this is a bit like Capricornia. There's all coal mining at the southern end, and there's lots of rural properties. The wine industry is in the electorate and extends straight right up into the rural parts of the Upper Hunter. And on these figures, we're seeing a swing of 17.5%. Now, that swing figure is on one booth. It's actually got 2 booths now, and the swing figure has come down to 12.8. We've got 6 primary booths, so we can't call that, but again, that's another one of those figures that we're seeing an early swing in.
But what that does show, of course, is the volatility of these early figures, but nonetheless a swing.
Nonetheless, I'll just say that what I am saying is I've got 1 seat which Labor is ahead in a seat they don't hold, and I've got 10 where the coalition is ahead in a seat they don't hold. When you're seeing that sort of thing on early figures, you're sort of seeing a trend that's going against the government.
Stephen Smith, you're also getting some figures in across a number of seats. What are they saying broadly?
Well, generally the same as what we've heard from Anthony. I've got a couple of returns in where there's either a small result for Labor, which is a swing towards us, or it's status quo, but again, it's too early. The trend is, when you look at it, everything is going against Labor in the seats where it counts. Both the 2 seats we've just looked at, Capricornia and Peter Garrett's old seat, Kingsford Smith, there I think you'll find one of the effects of tonight is that if you are an incumbent, you will, when it gets down to the cutting edge, have an advantage. So in those 2 seats which we hold, we've got good, in the case of Capricorn, a long-standing, well-respected member retiring. In Peter Garrett's case, less period of time, but high-profile ministers. So we've got 2 new candidates in. And so that'll be harder to win than an incumbent will find that defending. On the Tasmanian stuff, we either get 4 out or 5 out of Tasmania historically. On paper, essentially you can count Wilkie in the Labor column. I think Wilkie will probably hold his seat, but we will be under pressure in the 4 seats we hold in Tasmania. Yeah. And, you know, we are buttering, sort of preparing to be buffered in Tasmania to a very large extent.
Arthur Sinodinos, are you getting any early feedback?
Some feedback from Western Sydney, which is consistent with this pattern. So, yeah, but I haven't got anything that is really definitive.
No, but it's the trend, I think, that's telling the story. Yeah. Anthony, we're going to look at the seat of Fairfax, I think.
Yes, I'm just going to bring this one up first because this is the seat Clive Palmer is contesting. We'll go on and do more detailed seats in a moment. Let's just look at Fairfax for the moment, because what we're seeing here is the LNP vote is on 43% and Clive Palmer's on 29%. So this is the one seat where you thought the Palmer's United Party might have a chance of winning. Now, I won't go into any detail on that, but I just thought I'd toss it up as the first figures. But we can now go on to actually look at some more detailed figures off the full-screen graphics.
Okay, well, the seat of Moreton, this is one of the seats very much in play. This is Brisbane's inner southern suburbs. Graham Perrott won this seat in 2007 and held it again in 2010, but he's on a margin of only 1.1%.
And it's a very small joint booth at Holland Park West, so it's not always nice, reliable booths. And when you look at the numbers there, you'll see they're quite small. But we'll go through and show what we're estimating the swing to be in this one individual lecture. Quite a vote there for the Greens, 18%.
Okay, Eden Monero, we've already raised a couple of times tonight. This is Mike Kelly's seat. A minister in the Labor government. He's held it since 2007. This is the great barometer seat of federal politics. He's on a margin of 4.2%, very early count, but a swing against him.
And used to work for various ministers in the Howard government. He's ahead on first preferences. We've now got a preference count in 3 polling places.
The campaign manager there is saying that he's finding it volatile as they go around. So so there's no foregone conclusion on that seat, I don't reckon.
No. The seat of Lyons in Tasmania, this takes up a huge...
There are 3 small booths and there's 100 polling places in that electorate. There isn't an electorate that's more diverse in the country than Lyons.
Yeah. Right. It's, in some respects, it's the most regionalised electorate in the country, lots of small hamlets. Anthony said that, Big Dick Adams would be hard to dislodge from the seat. Well, Big Dick's hard to dislodge from anything, I can assure you. But he is...
I hope he doesn't mind you saying.
He's the class of 93. He is a very, very good local member.